Sounds like we're making fun of them. We're really not.
I know.
It's so much fun.
It does sound cool.
Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of When Records Ruled, the podcast where we share our love of rock music and pop culture from the 70s and 80s and take a few B-side tracks down memory lane along the way. So grab those liner notes and freshen up those hair spikes or oversized bangs with a little dep, mousse, or gel, because it's time to hit the play button. I'm your host, David Norris, and joining me on this flashback musical road trip are my good friends Brian Strom and Lance Schwartz. How are you guys doing?
I think I had some mousse.
I'm doing good.
Yeah,
doing good. I'm pretty sure I had mousse when I had the mullet.
You were a mousse guy?
Mousse the sides and the mullet hanging down.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Well, I was going to say, Dave, this is an early recording for us. I'm kind of tired. I might need to have a little something to drink here.
Wow. Merch. We have merch.
When did you... Brian's holding a When Records Ruled branded mug.
Isn't that cool?
Did you get one for Dave and me too?
I did not. This was a birthday gift
Nice.
from my son, James.
Oh, that is sweet.
Okay.
Fun?
Yes, that is.
I'll let James know when my birthday is too.
Yeah.
That will go on the socials immediately.
Right on.
And if any of you out there are looking for merch, keep looking. We don't have it yet.
Keep looking at the pictures.
Maybe soon. I don't know. Let us know in some comments if you want some merch. That'll help determine. Yeah.
I think we got to get to like maybe 5 core listeners before we get some merch too.
We got to hit some kind of threshold at least. All right. So in this episode, we are venturing a little ways from our earlier album reviews and heading into the late 80s with the album Kick by Australian rockers INXS, or if you were me when you first heard of the band, INXS.
Yeah.
You too?
Well, not me, but some of my kids said that.
Yeah.
Like, what's this next one you're talking about? INXS?
Exactly. We'll hear what was happening around the time of the album's release, wrap it up with a personal rating of the album, and then we'll end the show with our Remember When segment. To get us started, Lance has some details about the album for us.
Yes, I do. Kick by INXS is the 6th studio album by the Australian band. It was released on October 12th, 1987. Several different labels actually around the world carried it. Warner in Australia, Mercury in Europe, Atlantic in the United States and Canada. The album was produced by a producer named, of course it was produced by a producer.
That's how it usually works.
Lance, did he have a name?
He did. Chris Thomas. Interesting. He had worked with groups like Roxy Music, The Pretenders, Pete Townsend, Elton John, as a producer, and has worked in sessions with, get this, the Beatles and Pink Floyd.
Ooh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Some high-powered stuff.
No kidding.
So he's qualified.
I think so.
Yeah.
Barely. Barely.
Kick was the band's most successful studio album. Been certified platinum 6 times by the recording industry. Recording industry, what does the AA stand for even? RIAA.
I looked it up today.
And?
I don't remember. Recording Industry of Americas.
Sorry, folks, we're old guys. We looked it up, but we can't remember. Neither Dave nor me can remember.
The Recording Industry Association of America.
Okay.
There you go. Thank you, laptop and Google.
The album peaked at number 3. Brian, I'm talking.
Pay attention.
He's had his coffee in the mug.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Are you sure it was coffee?
Yeah.
The album peaked at number 3 on the Billboard 200. Spawned 4 U.S. top 10 singles: New Sensation, Never Tear Us Apart, Devil Inside, and Need You Tonight, which, the last one, Need You Tonight, reached the top of the charts, U.S. Billboard singles charts. Kick is the band's best-selling album with reported sales approaching 20 million worldwide.
Wow.
So a very, very big album. That's all I got. I think that's enough, isn't it?
I think so.
That's good.
So for an even better frame of reference, Brian's going to give us some information and fun facts about what was happening around the time the album was released.
Which was October 12th, 1987. Top bands of the time, Aerosmith, riding on the Permanent Vacation album. Michael Jackson, Whitesnake, Prince. What would Prince been at that time, Lance?
Yeah, that's a good one. It's after
1999.
I'm so old I can't remember the names of albums anymore either.
Okay. All right. Well, I won't ask you then. Def Leppard, George Michael, Guns N' Roses, and U2. So a lot of big ones in there.
So that would have been Guns N' Roses' debut then around that time? That they were competing against?
Yeah.
Okay. So some big albums.
Right.
Big names, big albums.
Top songs for this week. Number 3, Carrie by Europe, which was their third single. Lost in Emotion by Lisa Cult Jam. And Here I Go Again by Whitesnake. Top TV shows, The Cosby Show. Spin-off from that. Anyone?
Different World.
Different World.
Also a good show.
Also a B-side to one of the INXS singles.
The theme song to A Different World?
No, but a song called A Different World came out at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Wonder if there's a connection.
Maybe.
Okay. Cheers, Golden Girls, and Growing Pains.
All good.
Well, Golden Girls?
Well,
come on, Dave.
I mean,
Lance
I may
maybe
have watched
Dave,
an episode here and there.
I'm still trying to remember the Prince album. Seriously. I can picture it. See the cover. Can't remember the title.
All right. Well, you keep thinking. Top movies, Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Yes.
Fatal Attraction, Platoon, Dirty Dancing, and another little connection with INXS, The Lost Boys.
Yes, we'll get to that.
We will.
Yes. The only one I've not seen there is Dirty Dancing. I've never seen that movie.
Oh, okay. Well,
So-
check it out.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. No desire to see that one. I don't know why.
You must-
I probably should. I hear it's a really good movie.
Must not have any girlfriends in the late 80s.
Yeah.
Not that we're into movies.
I did, yeah. I actually saw that one in the theater.
With a girl?
No, it's just all my family and friends. So not all my family, my cousins and siblings. All right. Top toys. Koosh balls.
Koosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice.
Pound puppies. Teddy Ruxpin.
Yep.
And laser tag.
That's when laser tag was big.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So that's what I got.
Did you guys ever do laser tag when you were in the 80s?
Probably.
I did. I did not own it myself, but had a friend who had it. So yeah.
All right, guys, it's time we dive back into the 80s because sometimes you kick.
And sometimes you get kicked.
That's right. Let's do it. All right. First question for you guys. I want to start by getting your takes on the album overall and if you have any thoughts on INXS as a band.
I was familiar with INXS, a couple of their previous albums, the hits from those, so I was aware of them. But this was the album I know the most. Of course, you heard lots of the songs on the radio, on MTV.
Yep.
So
Lots of hit singles.
Yep. So, but as the band itself, I was not very familiar with. Like, I couldn't throw you out names of who these players are and who's doing this.
Yeah.
Other than Michael Hutchins, but that's about it.
Yeah.
I'd feel the same. I remember the one thing that I think that was maybe a MTV staple for a little bit.
Yep.
Good tune. And I, back in the day, owned Listen Like Thieves. I liked that album a lot.
What You Need.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. No, it was, and their sound, although a little more mature on Kick, was very similar throughout, I thought. I went back and listened to a few of the albums, and, you know, with production, with the superstar producer they had now, some of the earlier albums probably would have maybe hit a little earlier.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, this was the 6th album, right?
Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
I would say that, the earlier stuff, I mean, they sounded better than demos, but not too far beyond that.
Yep. Would agree.
Yeah.
You listen to some of the really early stuff, even the production quality from song to song differs so greatly.
Yeah, right.
I was listening to some earlier this week, and boy, there was a huge difference between
Yeah.
some of the songs' treatment, which was really finished, and some of them sounded like a demo.
Right. Yep.
And so, yeah.
And that may have just been because of lack of songs. I mean, this is what we
Yeah.
got.
Yep.
Maybe they didn't have the time in the studio.
Yeah,
And you
that's
just
true.
kind of lay down what you can in the
Yeah.
amount of time you could. And especially in the early days, I'm sure, they weren't getting much of an investment from the record company.
Yeah.
I had read, and I forget where it was, but they kind of felt like they had something with the songs on this album,
Mhm.
which kind of goes against what I'm saying, because I do think their writing was pretty consistent throughout their career. But they, I think, if I remember right, that was the reason they decided to bring in a high quality producer for this album, because they thought they were ready to hit it big, and obviously they did.
Yeah. And I think after What You Need, which kind of broke them in the U.S., and they kind of used that as a formula for this album.
Yep, very much so.
So what would you compare this style of music to?
Ooh, that's a good. I mean, just as we were talking here a second ago, I'm thinking, what would you call this? I mean, they were
Yeah.
really a new wave band. Their early stuff. I mean, it's
Yeah.
very new wavy. But this is beyond that. So, man, I don't even know how to categorize it.
The earlier stuff does sound a bit like Men at Work,
Yeah,
which, maybe they had a lot of Aussie sound. If you
True.
look back, just the instrumental and the construction,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit like that. I read too, early on in their career, they were supporting Midnight Oil
right.
on the pub rock circuit in Australia.
That'd be fun to see.
Yeah.
I like
Beds
Midnight
are
Oil.
burning.
Yeah.
That's the only song I know by them.
Yeah, same.
Midnight
I
Oil.
actually went down that rabbit hole for a little bit to see
Yeah.
if I recognized any other Midnight Oil songs, and I did not,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
The album, according to some critics, it was dubbed as something called rhythm rock. So
Okay.
I don't know exactly what rhythm rock is, but I'm thinking about the tunes. There's no guitar solos really. It's
Right.
Not
Just-
really, yeah. Yeah.
So
And
maybe
it's a very riffy. I mean,
yeah.
all these songs are based on these riffs. And I was trying to, I don't even know how to describe that too. These riffs are very start-stoppy. I don't know if that means, like goes, stops, goes, stops.
Yeah.
It repeats, stops. I mean,
They're very
just
hard
kind of-
cut for everything.
Hard cut. That's a good word for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed that too. And most of the songs have that element throughout.
Yeah. But very catchy riffs. I mean,
Yeah,
they're
Totally.
just-
Yeah.
Overall, it's a pretty fun album. Kind of a positive album, and
Do you think
party,
there's
good times.
Yeah. Do you think there's a little bit of a U2 influence in the guitar playing?
Maybe.
I can hear a little bit of that. I'm not sure if it was influenced or maybe just of the time,
Yeah.
guitar sounds, kind of vary from decade to decade. And I don't know if it was just the technology and people experimenting with those. And maybe they heard that in a few other bands. It's possible.
And U2 is, they're not known for great guitar solos either. So
No.
maybe they're just kind of the
But a
riffy
signature
kind of a
sound
thing.
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just very much an effects guy.
Yep.
Yep.
Right.
Very, very much so. This
Yep.
is one of those albums. In my first note that I wrote about this, I can put this on at any time and it immediately puts me in a good mood.
Yeah.
And I can listen to this the whole way through. It's just so
Oh, wow.
super positive. I have really good thoughts and feelings
Mm-hmm.
about this album. And it was just at the time of my life that things were just really, positive and going well, that I can just pop this on anytime.
And I never owned this album. I was a singles guy, 12-inch singles. I liked getting different stuff, different remixes of songs, unreleased album tracks. And so INXS was really good at that kind of stuff. So I have their 12-inch singles so I was really familiar with those songs and songs that aren't on the album. But I do remember the first time I listened to the album, Dave, was when we were in college.
Yeah, and I had the CD.
You had the CD. We're playing pool. Dave comes down with his CD boombox.
Heck yeah.
And this song, and he put this CD on, and of course the first song was, I'm drawing a blank,
Guns in the Sky.
Yeah, and I was like, whoa, this is really cool. I was familiar with all the other stuff, but I was like, wow, I might have to get this album. And I think I probably ripped it from you. Is my
Probably
guess.
just throw it on cassette
Yeah.
for you.
And then I don't know. I remember you got a bunch of your CDs ripped off, Dave. Was this one of them?
I don't think so.
Okay. But then you did have the Lost Boys soundtrack CD.
Okay, I thought I had that. That one did get ripped off.
So that got ripped off.
Because I don't have that in my CD collection anymore.
Right. But that had a couple INXS songs on there with Jimmy Barnes.
Yes.
So that was a little connection with that one.
So the song Good Times, which is on that soundtrack, came out. They released the movie was released in July 1987. So I'm assuming the soundtrack came out right around that time. And Kick wasn't released until October. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if this helped kickstart, jumpstart the popularity of Kick.
Maybe.
Too. Yeah. If people were hearing that in the theater and then going, oh, I heard that single. That single sounds like the guy I just heard in the movie soundtrack.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was. Yeah.
Yep.
And Good Times is a cool song.
It is.
I love that
fun
song.
one.
The other song on the album I didn't recognize as much. I don't think it was played as much and not quite as popular, but Lou Gramm also on that album, or the soundtrack, and Roger Daltrey.
Lost in the Shadows.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Great song.
Good song.
Does the album remind you of anything in particular from when you first heard the music at all? Because I get a story about when I heard one song in particular, but go ahead.
This is going to be weird, but
that's okay.
We don't expect anything different from you.
This
Lance.
whole show is weird.
It is weird at times. I believe I probably had the CD of this as well. I can't remember, actually. But I remember listening to this album while I was washing my car in about 1987 or 88, thinking, oh, this is cool music.
And what kind of car was it?
It was 1987. It was a Ford Fairmont Futura.
Ooh.
Picking up all the ladies with that one.
Ugliest. It was a two-door at least, though, but it had plaid seats.
Oh wow.
Please find a photo of that so we can put it on our social media.
I think I deliberately did not take a photo of that.
Find
you
the
watched
duplicate so we
that
can
was good.
show people what that looked like.
Yeah, I could do that, and it was not nearly as cool as your car back then.
Yeah.
I lucked out on my car. This is a tangent, but my dad had a friend who was selling a Camaro Z28. It happened to be brown, which wasn't the most appealing color, but I mean, it looked cool. And I replaced the rims with some like cool center lines and popped up the back a little bit.
Yeah.
Had like air injection butterflies on the front of the hood. So it looked pretty badass.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were able to sneak in through the T-tops when you locked your keys in the car too.
That's
that
right.
Was a big bonus with that vehicle.
Throw back to the last episode on concerts. If you haven't heard that story, go back and listen.
I was driving my 1978 Honda Accord hatchback at this time.
That's a cool car.
Yeah.
That was it.
Blasting the songs with my 6x9s in the back.
Even cooler. That's like an in-between Lance's car and my car kind of car, I think.
Right.
I'm not sure what year the Fairmont Futura was.
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't even know if I've heard of that.
Yeah,
I'm trying to picture.
There's a reason why, Brian.
Does it go the wayside with the Pinto, or
it doesn't sound like a cool looking car.
Nope, not at all.
So
I had a cool car after that.
I was a senior in high school when this came out, so that was my kind of pinpoint in time.
So I was a junior when this came out, but during my senior year, they used Never Tear Us Apart as like their theme for the prom, which I did not go to. But But they had like an all school kind of assembly to announce the couples for senior prom, homecoming. Basically, it was homecoming.
Yeah.
So if it's one and the same to me because I never went to any of them. So senior prom, they get everyone together in the gym. The lights go down, and they have spotlights, and they're announcing the couples, right? And they start playing Never Tear Us Apart. And then they announce couples. And they're on the side of the gym. It's a rather large gym. So I went to a pretty large high school. And so they're walking from the edge out to the middle, and they stand. And then they announce the next couple. And there's 10 couples. So Never Tear Us Apart is only a 3-minute song. So we must have heard it at least 5 times in a row. And I'm just like, okay, I am officially burned out on this song for a while now because you hear it over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
Let's either walk faster. Let's get it done, man. Come on. So just
start playing Guns in the Sky.
Yeah. Play a different song. Yeah. It doesn't have to be Never Tear Us Apart endlessly.
Yeah. Did you say it was the theme for the prom?
It was the theme for homecoming. Yeah. Yeah. Never Tear Us Apart.
Oh, homecoming.
Sorry. Yeah.
Homecoming.
I thought it was for prom. It was Homecoming.
Oh yeah, October would be Homecoming.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when INXS was recording this album, they delivered it to the record company, who listened to it, and they did not like it.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So they were saying things like, "There's no way this music's going to get on rock radio. There's no way. It's too out of touch." So they even offered them good money to go re-record the album.
They offered him $1 million.
So yeah, isn't that crazy?
I read that story. It was
So
bonkers.
So what do they know? I mean, here, what did you say? 20 million copies sold worldwide,
Right.
Yeah.
and they were thinking this was not going to work.
This kind of goes back to one of our other episodes, wasn't it? Boston, right?
Yeah,
Where
right.
Not going to work.
Shop
This
that
stuff
around
is
forever,
garbage.
and yeah.
What do executives know?
Doesn't sound like much.
I'm sure they're playing a chance game, really, in percentages, right? They're
Yeah.
gambling all the time. It seems like, because they don't really know.
If their comment was it's not going to go on rock radio, so what did they? I mean, we listed some of the bands that were big at that time. A lot of these hair bands.
Yeah.
They're thinking it's not that, it's not whatever else. So yeah, they were probably trying to figure where this is going to fit in.
Okay. Back to our previous conversation. What kind of music would you call this?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a little out there.
Yeah.
I mean, not totally, but it wasn't like what was on the radio. I agree.
The Fix.
Yeah.
I mean,
little.
kind of in that. I mean, kind of maybe REM. Some of the earlier REM stuff with
Little bit.
INXS. I think those are maybe a little similar.
Was it too, quote unquote, college rock?
Well, yeah, maybe.
That's where they originally, I think, started playing that on college rock stations to get it out there.
Yeah.
They kind of had a deal to get it disseminated in college rock, and then it became more popular, and then major radio stations or networks started playing some more singles.
To appease the record company when this album came out and they were trying to promote Need You Tonight, they set up a college tour, and that was where they kind of started. And they said, okay, if the college tour is successful, then we can go on to bigger things. And it was successful.
I love college rock.
Yeah.
I think we kind of have lost some of that because radio isn't nearly as big as it used to be, because a lot of colleges had college rock stations.
Yeah.
And it was a great way to discover
You're right.
different bands.
Yep. Stuff you're not going to hear anywhere else.
They usually they'd have, DJs that would come in from the college for a couple hours and play some of their favorite music and
Yeah.
struck a chord. So that was probably a good marketing decision
Mm-hmm.
to go through the college stations. They were still big at that time.
Right.
Does Michael Hutchence remind you of any other rocker from maybe an earlier era?
Yeah.
His life story, moves, voice, all that stuff?
Mick Jagger.
Mick
Jagger.
Yeah, a little bit
Yeah.
of that too.
Yeah.
Oh.
The way he moves.
He's got the moves.
Jim Morrison. That's what you're probably thinking.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
And before I even, did a little Googling on that, I was thinking it the whole time, going, there's so many parallels here. I mean, just the way he moves, the way he sounds, he's a baritone, the trouble he got in, end of life.
Right.
There was a lot of parallels. So I did some digging. I'm like, obviously somebody's got to put this together. There's a book out there called A Tale of Two Brothers, Jim Morrison and Michael Hutchence. It sounds pretty interesting, but then I read it was 732 pages. So if anybody out there has read this, want to give me the cliff
So not
notes,
that
whether it's-
interesting, but
Yeah, I'm like, oof, all right. That sounds like an investment.
I'll wait for the movie.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds interesting, but yeah, there are a lot of parallels there when you look at them.
Yeah, for sure. You don't agree on my Mick Jagger?
The Mick Jagger, I mean, a little bit.
if you watch some of the videos, I can see
Yeah,
you're talking moves and stuff. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where I'm coming from.
I could.
Voice, not so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got the moves like Jagger.
There you go.
That's it.
How about
Yeah.
Bono? Any Bono influence there?
Maybe the hair.
The hair.
I don't know.
Okay, we'll leave that.
I think he had better hair than Bono at that time.
Oh, yeah.
Bono had
Bono's-
kind of a mullet thing going
Mullet.
on, right?
Really
was
stiff.
cool.
Yeah. Anyway.
Straight.
Yeah.
Michael Hutchence had some sweet hair.
Yeah, he
Let's
did.
be honest. He was using a lot of depth.
And just run your fingers through the
Or
hair,
mousse.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Do you guys have a favorite song on the album, by the way?
Right now, Guns in the Sky.
Same.
Yeah.
Why do you like it so much?
it's a great opener. It just, I don't know, the drums and that beat. And then like we're talking about that guitar start stop thing. It's just, I don't know. It just drives. The whole song just drives.
Yes. And that they never released that one as a single, lyrically, that is so different from everything else on the album.
Yeah.
Because that's basically a big political commentary on what was happening and Star Wars, guns in the sky kind of thing, But then when you get past that, it's all like relationships and love and partying and excess.
Right.
So it was very different. I like it because for those same reasons. I was listening to it again today, and the distortion in the beat, it's very similar to some rap I was listening to at the time by Run DMC. Like the machine.
Wow.
That Roland, Roland drum machine.
Yeah, just the distortion.
Yeah.
And it was like, it's cool.
It sounds so
I love
big.
the energy of it.
Yeah.
But it's a great way to kick off that album. And anytime I'm listening to the album, it's usually just going to start at the top. With that song.
Yep.
And you got to have a song like that to kick off an album.
Totally.
We've talked about that in previous episodes.
Yeah.
That it's got to grab your attention right away.
You mentioned that it wasn't a single, but they did have a music video for it, which is interesting.
I don't know if I ever saw that.
Yeah. It's kind of it looks like they're in a long hallway, maybe like a school hallway. It's not a school, and it keeps showing them like coming through the doors and walking down the hall, and they're all doing different things, playing their instruments, walking, and then it'll cut to them coming through the doors again, walking down the hallway, doing things. And then it cuts again, coming through those doors, walking down the hallway, doing different things. And so
like they're just in this loop.
Yeah. In a loop. Eternal loop. Yep.
Interesting. I need to go back and watch that.
Yeah. Maybe we can catch it on Vivo somewhere.
There you go.
Yeah.
YouTube.
Not MTV.
Not MTV. No, they don't play videos anymore.
No.
I'm sure people know that. Lance, what's your favorite song?
This might come as a surprise because it's such a hit, but I really like New Sensation.
You're not alone.
Yeah. I mean, it just talk about keeping the beat all the way through and that guitar riff all the way through.
Yeah.
And Hutchins really, his vocals bring the song to another level for me. It just keeps you upbeat all the way through. And I could probably listen to it, maybe 3-4 times in a row and not get sick of it. It's a good start the day sort of bring the mood song for me. So I love it.
Yeah, that one reached number 3 on the Billboard charts. So it was a good, is their third single, I believe. So it got up there, did really well. Oh, and I don't know if you guys know this, if you listen under the guitar on that, a banjo.
What?
Yes. And once you listen, you go like, oh yeah, that's a banjo. Now every time I listen to it, it's like, that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing the banjo.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so they kind of snuck that in there.
One of the things I noticed about the remastered, the 30th anniversary, is it really brings out a lot of the instruments, and it's a lot of fun when you have a decent set of headphones.
Dave mentioned that to me.
I did. When we were talking about it earlier before we're recording, I had been listening. I just found the original one because I didn't want all the extra stuff looping, all the extra songs. But then I found the remastered version, and I just compared a couple of the songs, and boy, the clarity was so far improved.
Yeah.
And you could hear all the little things, the distortion, is particularly in Guns in the Sky too, and how different that was, because the original version almost sounds muddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dave, you are on your way to becoming an audiophile.
Thank you.
It's a blessing and a curse.
Baby steps.
It's so much fun when you have a good set of headphones to listen to a good remastered or a album that was recorded properly early on.
Yeah. They did a great job with remastering that one.
Really did.
So another kind of joke, funny thing in New Sensation was when they were recording the vocal and it came to the part where the sax solo was, he yells, "Trumpet." And then it goes into a sax solo. And it was just a joke, him doing that, but they left it in.
That's hilarious.
And so I had never caught that before because it's a little hard to understand what he's saying. But now that you know it, listen to it. He yells,
yeah,
"Trumpet."
I will now.
And when they made the video for the song, they cut that out because as a visual, you didn't want to hear trumpet and then see the guy playing the sax, and then everyone's gonna go like, "It's not a trumpet," you know. So anyway,
wow.
kind of funny.
That is cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that and catch that now.
You're making us want to go back and listen through for all these little nuances.
Yep,
Gonna do it.
that's what we're here for. We hope all our fans do the same.
Yes.
That reference you had for your favorite song, all these songs are so positive in nature. When you get to Mediate, it's a little bit of a drone.
Yeah,
But the rest of them are so just like
you
happy,
know,
positive.
yeah. I mean,
Sounding
It's
anyway.
really a dance album in a way.
Yeah.
And they remix so many of these songs, extended versions that
Yep.
are total dance songs. So you could tell that was kind of an idea going into this, where we're gonna make it this way.
And that was really popular at the time too,
Right.
to remix songs.
Yep.
Speaking of Prince, I mean, there were a lot of
Yep.
remixes, but dancing,
Graffiti Bridge.
it might have been.
Ooh,
Yeah,
I don't
it
know.
might have been.
You're still, you're still thinking of the Prince album.
Yeah. You mentioned Mediate. I almost feel like that's a continuation of Need You Tonight, because it goes right into it, and the riff is a little bit the same as well. Was there some backstory on that?
There was a little bit. I mean, it sounds like it was a separate song. They used the same drum machine, and it was in the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they recorded this, they did just record them at the same time. So they went one right into the other. But originally it was two separate songs. So I don't even know. I mean, if you could listen to Mediate as a separate song, it doesn't even work.
I think you're right, and that's why I feel like it's a continuation.
So yeah, putting those together did work, but separate, I don't even know why they would have put it on the album.
it would have stuck out like a sore thumb on this album. Yeah.
I mean, unless it was a unreleased B-side track, then that would work. But
Yeah, when you start Mediate, you already hear the ending of Need You Tonight.
Right.
yeah,
Let's talk about the video for that for a minute, because it's quite an awesome set of videos. Did you guys read anything about these two videos together? Or have you seen them both together back to back?
I don't think I've seen them. Maybe I have seen them back to back. That's a really good question.
yeah.
But Mediate resonates more for me because it was the kind of copy of the Bob Dylan, with the cue card words and
The
stuff.
Subterranean Homesick Blues.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's just really cool effects on Need You Tonight that I thought just stuck out in my brain. I can remember that video even before I rewatched it more recently and showed it to my wife too, to see if she remembered it. And she's like, "Oh yeah, I kind of do remember that." So,
Yeah.
but
and then that was the end of the conversation about music with your wife.
Yes, she's not an audiophile. So the video was very much in line visually with the music, if that makes sense. Obviously, you could see the vision, the visuals from the album cover and things like that were very much like part of the video. So it wasn't so stark contrast. So they did a good job of incorporating that. But the effects that they were using for this video were just so striking. I just, when they stop like one of the players from playing and he kind of slides off screen, I just remember that. That stuck in my brain so hard. But with the effects, I read up on the video creation a little bit. The director claimed that those particular visual effects in Need You Tonight were created by cutting up 35 millimeter film and then photocopying the individual frames before relayering those over the original footage.
Wow.
Man, whatever you just said, it sounds pretty intense because I can't even picture it in my mind.
They were doing this with recording records, the same with film. I mean, records, you'd cut tape and you'd splice it together and do that. So same thing with film.
I bet you Tom Scholz did that because he worked
absolutely.
no, for this album.
Oh,
For
yes.
the video.
Oh, he's
Came back.
Wow.
Yeah, because he worked
He's
at
directing
Kodak,
videos?
right?
Oh, that's right. Ooh, full circle.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice.
So the time put into that kind of stuff, and now you could just do it like that.
That was going to be my comment. Yeah. I mean, so much of that was so manual, and how painstakingly long it must have taken to do that. And boy, this was a labor of love. And then all of a sudden, now we can just flip on a couple filters and boom, Bob's your uncle.
You know what? It felt like it took forever, but nobody had social media back then. So
nobody
they
knew.
weren't distracted by other things.
Yeah. And they didn't know how long it wasn't taking.
Right.
If
Exactly.
that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so we go from that into the Mediate, which segues right into the Bob Dylan Subterranean
Right.
Homesick Blues kind of feel where they flip the cards from the keywords. They won 5 MTV Music Video Awards
Wow.
with this, including the 1988 Video of the Year, and it was ranked number 21 on MTV's countdown of the top 100 greatest videos of all time.
Back when videos mattered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
So that's 5 awards is a big thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But like you said, they're kind of paired together.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And Mediate, for those who haven't heard that part of the song, each song or each word ends in 8.
yeah,
It's like
It's a lot of
mediate,
8s.
segregate. A lot of 8s, 50.
Wow.
I was going to count them at one point. I'm like, nah.
That's a challenge.
Thank you for
Yeah.
counting.
Yeah.
50 different words.
50 different words
Yes.
that end in 8.
And so I was thinking, like, is that an easy thing or a hard thing to write a song like that?
Well, it's just rhyming. So in a way,
But I mean, to tell a story,
yeah.
you know, I think it would be
Right.
on the easier side when you're I don't know.
Did you guys in 1998, did you guys rotate or?
I probably
98,
did.
rotate.
I probably did somewhere along the way. Did you know, switching gears a little bit, unless you had something more on that
No,
one.
I don't.
Did you know that one of these is a cover song on the album?
No, I didn't. But can I
No.
maybe guess which
Yeah.
one it might be?
Yes.
Is it the Loved One?
It is.
Yeah.
Nice guess.
So it's a that I was going to say of all the songs on the album, that one was, I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's my favorite of the non-hits.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it almost kind of has a little bit of a Motown feel to it. Maybe 50s even. So who 60s?
66.
Who was the artist?
The Loved Ones. That's the band name.
Okay.
Yeah.
They were an Australian group called The Loved Ones. And they wrote the song The Loved One. And it sounds very 60s. If you go back and
Yeah,
look,
it
maybe we'll
does.
post the
Yeah.
video on social too, because
Yeah.
it's an interesting sound that they have for that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's very 60s, but it sounds quite a bit slower
Yeah.
than what they did.
Yeah. It just was the one song in the album that like, yeah, this doesn't sound like the rest of it, but I really like it.
Wow, you're pretty
So-
sharp, man.
That was sharp.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a good song.
I'm not making this up either. I did not look that up ahead of time. So I felt it almost had, go back to our freeze frame discussion. It kind of had a Jay Giles band feel to me as well. That's why I said kind of bluesy, Motown-y. It was a fun song. So good fact, Dave.
Yeah, that surprised me. I'm increasingly surprised in a good way about how many songs I come across like this on albums that are unknowingly covers,
Yeah.
because the band did such a good job of making it their own, which I totally appreciate.
Right.
It's
Well,
not just
how do you know? Because did you hear the original?
not prior to finding it.
Yeah.
I in my research I found out that was a cover, and I was like, wow, what?
Yeah.
Well, who did that? And I went back and listened to the original one.
You're right, though. That a band has to, if they're going to do a cover and include it on an album, you better make it your own.
Yeah.
Unless it's an obscure song, then it doesn't really matter.
Like this one.
Right.
Yeah.
So whether it was different than the original one, I'd say most people would never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was reading about Never Tear Us Apart, Dave's favorite song, of course, on the album.
That is not. It's not my least favorite, but it's not my favorite.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So originally it was a piano ballad, and it had no orchestration or orchestral arrangements in it at all. And that version was released on Kick 25, the 25th anniversary reissue of the album. So if you want to hear that,
Okay.
go back and check it out.
Yep. I saw also they played that at Michael Hutchins' funeral as they were
The
carrying.
piano version?
No,
Oh.
just the song.
Oh, yeah,
was playing in
okay.
the background as the band was
That
carrying
Norris carries
the
casket?
coffin out of the church.
Oh.
And that song was playing in the background.
Should we talk about Michael Hutchins?
Sure.
And I don't have a lot to add, but I mean, what a blow to that band.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's happened to many other bands over the years, Kurt Cobain being probably the most prominent, but I think I do remember seeing video from the the funeral as well with the full band there, and where are you going? I mean, he was a lead singer that was not replaceable.
Yeah.
Bon Scott was replaceable. Maybe the most famous of the replaceables was Brian Johnson, but can you think of other bands where the lead singer passed away and they went on to be successful with the new?
It's rare.
Yeah.
It's super rare, isn't it?
Yeah.
And all the issues he was going through at the time, their last, maybe 2 or 3 albums before he did die were very different. You could tell there was a struggle with him just in those.
Different, I listened just a little bit, but do you have an opinion of those albums at all? Did you spend much time with them?
I own a couple of them. I have a couple of the CDs, and I don't listen to them very much.
Yeah.
If you compare them to Kick,
were they a little more dark then?
They're darker. They're just not as catchy. They seem a little more disjointed. This one flows really well.
They're not as hard rocking though, are they?
No, I don't think so.
I skipped through some of them.
Yeah.
Kick,
but very different.
Kick seems like an album where everyone was on the same page. And like was it you, Dave, that said I can listen all the way through?
Yeah.
And that's pretty rare with an album that you can listen all the way through and not be disappointed.
And their next album, X10, is it X or 10? I don't even know. X, yeah. I think it's X.
Suicide Blonde was on there.
Yeah. Very similar to Kick in a way. I think, they found a formula. They said, we got to, and probably the record company more so.
Paid them $1 million to keep.
You got to keep doing the same thing, So I think that one did. And then after that, maybe they wanted to stay away from this kind of sound and did go a little different.
And to be fair, Nirvana, Soundgarden, grunge that would be the early 90s.
Yeah.
Everybody that wasn't grunge was struggling to figure out who they were at that time.
Yep. Big change in the landscape.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be tough for a lot of artists around that time.
For
hearing what was changing and going, boy, how am I going to adapt somehow? Or just keep trudging on with what I know?
Right.
And especially, when you lose a lead singer too, how does the band react to something like that?
Right.
Yeah.
That's a double whammy.
Yeah. And they did try to continue, didn't they? Make an album or two with a new lead singer, maybe one.
Yeah. They had that TV show where they were
trying
to find a new singer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe they did one album and that probably didn't work out well.
Yeah.
So Mystify, I thought it was a really good song. I don't believe it was released as a single, maybe in another country, but I don't think it was here. Although I do remember it playing on the radio. So it did get play. They did make a video for it, a music video. So another one of the songs that they did a video for, but not released as a single. The video is actually pretty cool. They start off with just the piano and him singing, and this is them live. They're really singing, kind of looking like they're, figuring out how they're going to sing the song and where they're going to do. So like through the first verse, it's that, and then they kick in with the actual studio recording video. So it's kind of fun. And that's probably kind of how the song was created that way.
They're just recapturing that in the video.
Right.
I love that stuff.
Yeah.
I love it.
I think it really carried on the upbeat feel of the album.
Yep.
But featured the piano more than the guitar. They could have easily created some riffy guitar part to that and might have even been a hit. But as such, it was not.
So Andrew Ferris, who wrote all the music for this album, they had success with Michael and him with Need You Tonight. They both wrote that song. And so they decided as a band on this album that they were going to let these two write all the music for the album. So this was, a lot of it was written on piano, keyboard, and then he also played guitar on a lot of the stuff.
There was a story I read too about when they there was a certain point where they didn't think like they had enough songs. So I think it was the producer sent Michael Hutchence and Andrew Ferris to Hong Kong, I think.
Yes. Yep.
Because either those two had an apartment there or something like that, just to go away, go write songs.
Yep.
And as they were leaving, there's a story about them right when they were getting a taxi, and Ferris had the idea for one of the songs in his head. He had a riff just pop into his brain.
It was the guitar riff for Need You Tonight.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Just a minor song.
Yeah, he told the cab driver, wait right here, I'm going to go back up to the apartment and get something.
Yep.
Cut to 45 minutes later, and the cab driver was a little pissed, but yeah, he went down and recorded it on a cassette, the riff for Need You Tonight. Yeah.
Keep the meter running.
Yeah.
I think it was worth it.
This will work out. Yeah.
I can pay the extra whatever.
Yeah, they could probably afford that.
I read in the same, maybe the same place you did, when Michael Hutchence heard the demo, he wrote the song's lyrics in about 10 minutes because he identified with the song so well. So they were a great songwriting team, it sounds like.
It's funny how often you hear stories of that when some songs come so easily like that, and that they're just dynamite hits.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hear that once in a while, don't you?
Yeah.
Somebody will ask, what was their inspiration, or how long did it take? Well, we sat down with a cup of coffee or had a beer, and 10 minutes later we had the song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
And I can't remember this session or while they were writing in Hong Kong. I mean, there was a couple more songs that came out of that too.
Oh yeah, I didn't read a list of what they wrote there.
Yeah, I can't remember which ones, but yeah. So it was a good getaway.
You wonder how many songs that didn't make this album maybe ended up on the subsequent album.
Yeah. And like I said, they had a lot of B-sides, unreleased songs for this. So I think that might have been some of those. Speaking of one of those was Different World, like we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And that song was I think it was a good song. It was album worthy. You can find it now on the anniversary reissues of that. But enough that there's a couple different versions of it. I mean, they made a dance version of it, an extended version of it. They did the same with Guns in the Sky. There's another extended version of that song. So even songs that weren't singles, weren't on the album, they were working with and putting out there. So
all the remixes.
Yeah.
Another way to make a little money back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I found the info on these songs from the Hong Kong sessions.
Okay.
So I was reading at the end of the 2-week seclusion in Hong Kong, they returned to Australia with the songs in hand, demo tapes. They were Need You Tonight, Kick, and Calling All Nations.
Okay.
And the producer at that time, Thomas, said, well, sounds like we're done now.
Yeah.
Because they were great tunes.
Yeah. So Calling All Nations, to me, sounds like a soundtrack song. It would have worked perfect on an 80s soundtrack somewhere. That and Wildlife. And I don't know if I'm thinking Wildlife because I'm thinking of the actual movie Wildlife.
Yeah.
But to me, that was just a great 80s party frat house song that would just fit perfect in any number of movies during that time.
You're right. I listened to that a couple times in a row on the way over to record this.
Yeah.
Actually, because it was just such a fun song.
Yeah.
Get me in the mood for recording.
Yep.
It's really weird to have an album dominated by such huge singles like this, that it somehow overshadows the great stuff that, the majority of the public probably didn't listen to that much. And it's kind of a bummer.
Yep.
Yeah. There was just so much on the radio. There was probably a lot of people. Well, I mean,
right.
You can't go wrong. There's how many sold in the U.S.? 6 million?
6 million, yeah.
I mean,
20 million worldwide.
That dominated. So there was a few people buying the album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And lots of saxophone in this album.
Yeah. Trumpet, you mean, right?
Yeah, trumpet, right. Which is like, yeah. And I know, Dave, we're just going to keep dragging you on this one that you don't like this song, but the sax solo in Never Tear Us Apart is pretty killer.
I've come to terms, I can listen to that song now without feeling like I'm burned out on it. But I think at the time I was, just like, I can't even listen to that for a while.
But you can just feel the pain in that sax solo.
Yeah.
Just screaming pain.
Yes.
So
yeah, it's a tremendous
pretty emotional.
solo.
Really fits the song well.
Yeah. mean, that's a pretty moving song, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It can be even dark in
Yeah.
spots.
Oh, yeah.
It's a really dark song.
Yeah.
And it's written in a way that has a lot of staying power. You know, it may have been your homecoming dance theme, which maybe props to the high school you went to for choosing that instead of some Chicago song or something. Nothing against Chicago, but it is a, as far as ballads go, a really moving song.
The dramatic pauses in that song is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, because that was different. That was very different.
Yeah.
And for, I mean, it's probably only like a second or two. I don't even know how long it is, but it seems really big compared to anything that you'd ever heard before.
And
True.
it just,
And then to build it back up again.
yeah,
It's
and it
pretty
just
cool.
adds to those things like the solos.
Right.
Like, get ready for this.
So with the song Kick, also the name of the album, they said, I think there's 3 songs on the album where kick comes up. The phrase kick somehow comes up. And that's how they kind of came up with the name for the album. But in the song Kick, the bass line on that is really fun to listen to. And that just kind of through the verses, that's kind of what drives the verses is the bass line. So that's a pretty fun one.
Part of that pleasingly complex album, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're great musicians.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's something we really hadn't talked about. I mean, there's a lot of them, but they're all very accomplished.
It sounded like, too, I remember reading somewhere, too, where there was not really arguments. Maybe they were arguing. I don't know. But any number of them could have played guitar on this song, played the guitar solo on this song, could have played saxophone on this song. So they had to pick and choose who was doing what on the songs because they were all accomplished musicians.
Multi-instrumental
Yep.
players. Yeah.
Right.
All right, it's time to give our personal rating of this album from 0 to 10, with 10 being leave it on repeat because I could listen to this all day. Would you drop the needle on this album again, Lance?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one to rate. I don't look at it as a classic album so much, but yeah, 7.75, pushing 8 for me.
Wow, throwing decimals at me now.
Yeah,
All right.
it's 8 is way up there on the scale, so that's why I'm saying 7.75. But you know, in prepping for this episode, I listened all the way through and I was not disappointed, which, as we said before, is a rarity with a lot of albums, especially from that time. So, you know, we're getting close to 8. Let's just go with 8.
I'm sticking at 7.75. That's your
Okay.
first-
Okay.
No, I can.
I'm
run it.
fine with that.
I'll run it up to 8.
Well, I'm going to up you on that one by 0.25, and I'm going to give it a solid 8.
Perfect. We're pretty darn close.
It's a very enjoyable album all the way through. I didn't really find like weak tracks just thrown on there. So it's a fun listen to, good, happy, upbeat album.
I'm just going to reiterate that same thing. I mean, it's just a solid album from start to finish. It starts off with a bang and, I mean, finishes pretty strong too. And everything in between is very, very listenable multiple times. So it's a solid album. It's an 8 for me as well.
You know what I just realized?
What?
I mean, the first song is Guns in the Sky, and then the last song is Tiny Daggers.
Huge contrast there.
Yeah.
But both weapons.
Yes, both weapons.
Yeah, interesting.
Good thing they went back to Hong Kong and got those 3 tunes too.
Yeah,
Might not have been. I guess those producers do know what they're doing
at times.
at times.
Sometimes. All right, it's time for Remember When, a segment where I ask Brian and Lance their thoughts about something we grew up with but may no longer be around today. Today's item for discussion, gentlemen, classic video arcades.
Ooh.
So let me give you a little tidbit on the relevant time period for classic arcades is relatively short. It's like from 79 to 83. It wasn't a big, huge span. So you guys have some favorite places that you played them or some favorite games? And I can list a few if you want for you. Maybe a favorite place to play. And then you can talk about games you played there.
There was a couple places, Golden Tee, which was a miniature golf place, which had
It's actually a
arcades. Oh, you're talking about a game? You said where
There's
we
a
played
game
the
called
games.
Golden Tee though too.
Oh, you're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
there is. No, but this was Golden Tee. It was where it was a miniature golf place, and they had a pretty big arcade inside there. So we spent a lot of Friday nights, Saturday nights there playing that. And also there was a small place near my house called San Francisco Posters, which had 6 or 7 video games in there, along with lots of music, T-shirts, posters. Yeah, posters like in the name. So yeah, I played a lot of games there. Some of my favorite games, I really liked Donkey Kong, Tron. I guess those are my 2 big ones.
Those are the go-tos
Those are my go-tos.
if they had them.
Mm-hmm. And Sprint.
Oh, Sprint. Yeah.
That was a fun one. I
Racing
could play that one for a long time. That was the game I ended my night on because I could throw a quarter in there and I could play for, an hour probably.
Wow.
Whoa, you were good.
Oh, man.
I was good. And also, it had three or 4 wheels on it. So 3 or 4 different people could play with you. Every time somebody else came in and joined you, the game slowed down a little bit.
Oh.
So I could just keep going. And as long as people kept coming in and playing along with me, I could just go forever. And the other thing I really loved is just the sounds. When you walked in and you hear 50 different video games playing at the same time, just that the noise and the sound of that is quite a throwback.
That is a high.
Yeah,
I
it
remember
really is.
that sound too when you'd walk into the arcade doors and just hearing the cacophony of noises.
Yeah.
They were competing for each other.
Yep.
It's not unlike stepping into a casino these days.
True. Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah. So 79 to 83, you say?
That's the heyday.
That was probably the sweet spot for me with video games as well.
Yeah.
So there were a couple places that we played. Probably the most prominent one that I can recall, they only had about 4 machines, but it was a place called Pontillo's Pizza, which is now Devani's.
Okay.
I don't know if you've probably been to Devani's in the Twin Cities. They're all over the place up there. But we had a friend that worked at Pontillo's, and we'd usually go up and wait till the end of his shift, and then we'd ride our BMX bikes somewhere after he was done with his shift. So while we were waiting, we played Pac-Man and Space Invaders.
Mm-hmm.
The classics.
They were the classics, yeah, and had a lot of fun. Right across the street and maybe down a block was a place called Beanie's Arcade, and that was a place where you heard all the different machines. There's probably 50 in there, but didn't go there too much. Most of the time we just hung out at Pontillo's and played those 2 classic games. It was a lot of fun.
There's a lot of places we rode our bikes to. I mean, you knew every restaurant, store, which games they had, when they were getting switched out, 7-Elevens. I mean, you were just you found yourself in some very different places that you would never go to, but they had a video game you wanted to play. And usually they had food too, so that was nice.
Yeah, the bonus, right? Even if it's, there was a couple like in between a grocery store and a mall too. There's like the walkway.
Oh, sure.
They would just pop them.
Yeah.
Maybe they had some like bubblegum machines there, but it was like clear some space for a couple arcades.
Yeah.
Because those were the money makers,
We had one that was at Pizza Hut, I believe it was. And they were on the corner, very dark corner, but right next to the salad bar.
Oh, really?
So
Wow.
It was very convenient when you're playing games and you could, grab some crackers or grab a little something off of the...
They shoehorned it in there.
Yeah.
Probably not a good spot.
No.
The little round cracker stick
Yes.
things.
Yes.
Yeah.
We were those, yeah. So
Those were great.
Can't remember what they were
little
called.
snacks while we were playing.
We had a couple of different major arcades where I grew up. One called Little Castle, which was actually 2 floors too.
Wow.
So that was awesome. And then one called Space Station, which was like huge. That was like the coveted one, but it was in kind of a shady place of town. So one time a friend of mine, Jan, rode the bus. We rode the bus down there.
Wow.
Just to play.
Too far to bike.
Unbeknownst to our parents. Yeah, it was too far to bike. It was
Sorry, Mom.
way across town. Yep. And then Chuck E. Cheese was always a good one too.
Oh, yeah,
they
that's
just had
true.
a ton of games.
Oh, man.
And in in that time frame too, it was all arcades. It wasn't like the tickety things.
Right,
They had a few
yeah.
of that, those two, the skee ball things, but
Yeah.
main video games were, the classic arcades.
I remember going to Chuck E. Cheese's, and there was like Friday nights, like from 9 to midnight, and you could just pay a flat fee
Oh, what?
and then just go in there and play all night, whatever you wanted.
wow.
But
We did not have that.
Yeah, but there was, Friday night during that
Yeah.
time period, some pretty sketchy people there, and so
It's
you
super
could
busy
get-
probably, right?
It was very busy.
Yeah.
There were some fights that would break out here and there, and little break dancing on the side. So it was, yeah,
California cool.
yes,
Some of the favorite games I played was Donkey Kong was probably the number one. Some other ones I wrote down: Dragon's Lair,
okay.
Track and Field,
Track and field, yes.
and one of my top favorite all time was Gauntlet.
Okay,
I don't know if you
I
ever
didn't
played
play
that.
that one.
That was a little later, late 80s. We would actually, this was like the coveted game to play. My buddy and I would ride down to 7-Eleven, or one time we actually took buses down to Chuck E. Cheese because the 7-Eleven, changed that one out. But we would shove $5 worth of quarters in to see how long we'd play for $5.
That was a lot of money.
That was a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a lot of quarters. Yeah. And we'd get pretty far. We'd play for like an hour probably.
Yeah.
So some kid would come in and play a little bit with us because it's a 4-player
Right,
game.
yeah.
And, we just keep playing.
Yep. Remember putting your quarter up on top there to reserve your spot?
Yes.
You got to play next.
Forgot to remember
Yep.
that. I remember that distinctively on a Defender game, like outside that grocery store I was thinking of. People would line up quarters
Yep.
and
You'd look and say, "Well, I'm never getting on this game."
Yep.
you would
Go
see a
find
stack of
something else.
5 and like, nope,
Yeah.
it's too long. Going to be waiting too long.
You've triggered some memories with this question, Dave. I'm recalling Cruisin' USA. I liked
yes.
driving games a lot.
Yep.
Cruisin' USA, and that one you could always get the bonus time.
Yeah.
it wasn't super difficult, and I loved playing that game too.
Yeah.
Kind of like to find that again.
It's tough finding actual arcade games that aren't the remakes anymore.
Right.
Maybe Matt Colsey can put a wheel on one of his games and do a Cruisin' USA for me. I might pay for that. Matt, are you listening?
There you
Yeah,
go.
no kidding. If he's got a series of games that require a wheel to drive, yeah, maybe.
Paperboy. Oh, that's
Yeah,
handlebars, right?
That's handlebars. Oh, that was a hard game.
That was
I did
hard.
not. That one in like 720 degrees.
Oh,
Played
yes.
a skateboard game.
Yep.
Oof, they were some tough games. All right, well, that'll about do it for today. In our next episode, we'll be kicking into high 80s rock gear when we talk about the Def Leppard album, Pyromania.
Yes.
So tune in for that one. If you missed our previous episode, we talked about all things concerts. We had a great discussion on our most memorable experiences, both good and bad. So if you haven't listened to it, go back and check it out.
If you've enjoyed this episode or even just tolerated it, would you do us a favor and click share on whatever platform you're listening to, and send the episode link to a friend and help spread the word about when records ruled. Also, let us know what album or topic from the 70s or 80s you'd really like to hear us talk about in a future episode.
If you have a minute, like right now, right after we're done talking,
Now,
leave us a review of the show on your favorite podcast listening app. Give us the good, the bad, and the ugly. We can take it. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at When Records Ruled, where you can see all sorts of fun stuff like pictures of us and maybe some of the things we talked about during this episode. We'll throw those up on there. Some of the bands we talked about. Check out our Spotify playlist where you can find all the albums that we've discussed on this podcast. And remember, we're not professional music critics. We're just three guys who like talking music.
that's right. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see ya.
Later.
See ya.